The afternoon was a blur of bright lights and carefully rehearsed smiles. What was supposed to be a light-hearted chat on the set of the Jennifer Hudson Show, a little slice of Californian sunshine with a side of charity talk and charming stories, quickly devolved into something far more tense. It began innocently enough, a feel-good segment destined for daytime television. But instead of warmth and laughter, it became a slow, simmering fire that eventually erupted. Clipped, sharp answers and a palpable tension built in the air until a final, jarring detonation. A microphone ripped off, and Prince Harry was seen stalking off the stage, leaving a stunned audience in his wake. The scene was set with a burst of energy. The band launched into a bright, upbeat riff, and the audience rose as one, a single, unified wave of applause and excitement. The studio lights bathed everything in that soft, inviting glow that was practically invented for daytime TV. Jennifer Hudson moved with an effortless grace, a true master of her craft. She exuded the kind of joy that could transform a mundane Tuesday into a special occasion. She flashed a camera-ready smile that felt so genuine it seemed to make the camera lens itself smile back. My next guest, Jennifer's voice was as warm as a comforting hug, needs absolutely no introduction. A devoted father, a passionate advocate, and a proud veteran. Please give a huge welcome to Prince Harry. The applause thundered across the set, a deafening wave of sound. Harry emerged from the wings, his practiced half-smile in place, his chin tipped up slightly in a gesture that seemed to suggest he was generously accepting the cheers. Dressed in a sleek gray suit with an open collar, his posture was athletic and relaxed. He shook Jennifer's hand with a firm grip, gave a respectful nod to the band, and took his seat as if it were a throne waiting for him. "Prince Harry, welcome," Jennifer said, her voice filled with a genuine welcome as she settled opposite him. "We are so incredibly happy to have you here. How's life treating you in sunny California?" Harry's smile became a little more pointed. "California's efficient," he stated, crossing one ankle over the other. "I can get from a good purpose to a meaningful outcome without a single motorcade getting in the way." A ripple of chuckles moved through the audience. Jennifer, always quick on her feet, sparkled back. "No motorcades. That's good for the gas bill," she teased. "So, what does a normal morning look like for you these days?" "Normal is a word people use when they've surrendered," Harry replied with a light tone, but a serious undertone. "I don't really do normal. I do intentional." Jennifer's eyebrows lifted a fraction, but she let the comment pass with a gracious nod. "Intentional is good. You've been very intentional about mental health and veteran support. Tell me about a project that's on your heart this week." Harry steepled his fingers, a thoughtful gesture that seemed to command attention. "I try not to confine a whole week to just one project, but if we have to simplify it, we're focused on scaling access and compressing stigma. We're moving entire systems, not just performing for press releases." A low murmur of confusion and curiosity spread through the crowd. Jennifer, the consummate professional, maintained her warm composure. "You've always had a way with words," she said smoothly. "When you talk about moving systems, what does that actually look like for the folks at home?" "It looks like them not needing to ask me to define it," he said with a small, teasing shrug that didn't quite land. "You know, agency." The bandleader shifted uncomfortably on his stool. Jennifer's smile remained fixed. She folded one leg over the other, as if the chair had suddenly become a bit too small for her. "Agency is a powerful thing," she agreed. "Let's get specific. You recently talked about building healthier information ecosystems. What's one practical step you'd want our viewers to try this week?" Harry nodded thoughtfully, as if weighing whether the question was worthy of his response. "Stop reacting. Start curating. Unfollow chaos. Build your inputs like you'd build your own home. You wouldn't invite hecklers to your dinner table, would you?" "That's a great picture," Jennifer said, genuinely charmed. "And what about family dinners? Do they happen? What's dad duty like in your house?" Harry's mouth quirked into a lopsided smile. "Duty is a word other people put on you. I prefer presence. I'm present. Selectively." A soft, uneasy ripple moved through the audience. Jennifer laughed it off, trying to lighten the mood. "Selective presence. That's parenting with a brand. I love it," she joked. "Okay, let's talk about your origin story. You've often said that California gave you a fresh start. What did you have to unlearn in order to take it?" He considered the question, his eyes fixed on the rigging above the set. permission, deference. The old idea that silence is noble. I've retired from apologizing for existing. Retired? Jennifer echoed, clearly amused. You make it sound like a formal ceremony. It was, he said, the corner of his mouth twitching. I officiated it myself. A few scattered, nervous laughs followed. Jennifer slid to the next card, her tone still as smooth as velvet. You've lived under a microscope for most of your life. If you could tell the public one thing they consistently misunderstand about you, what would it be? That I owe them access, he said, quick and clean, his voice sharp. Strangers ask for keys to rooms they didn't build. Jennifer nodded, still kind. That's fair, but sometimes access helps people understand the work. The why behind the headlines. For example, your foundation's impact. He cut in, smiling, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. People who need a press release aren't close enough to the work. Another murmur ran through the audience. Jennifer let her hands rest on her knee, palms open, a universal signal of good faith. Let me try to frame it a different way. Is there a moment, a veteran you met, a message you received that reminded you why you're doing what you're doing? There are many, he said, his voice flat. I tend not to convert them into daytime TV clips. The sentence landed like a velvet hammer. The audience fell silent, then restarted with cautious applause. Jennifer's smile never moved, but something behind her eyes shifted. Understood, she said gently. We don't need names. Just heart. Folks at home love hearing the human part. It gives them courage for their own day. Harry tilted his head. Courage is not a broadcast segment, Jennifer. It's a decision. True, she said, but sometimes a story is the spark for that decision. He met her eyes, a strange, knowing look in his. Or sometimes a story is a siphon. The cameras found Jennifer's face, which, moments before, had been full of sunshine, but now had clouds moving in fast. She pivoted, her tone soft and smart. Let's try this. You've talked a lot about boundaries. What's one healthy boundary you wish you'd set earlier? Answering only questions asked in good faith, he said with a bright, harmless smile that was not harmless at all. A few people in the audience laughed because they didn't know what else to do. Jennifer's lashes lowered and lifted. Reset. Okay, she said warmly. Then here's a good faith question. When the public hears you speak about institutions, it can sound very sweeping. Is there anything you admire about the world you stepped away from? I admire endurance, he said, even when it's misplaced. And the people? She pressed, her voice as gentle as gauze. Are there any relationships you hope to mend? I don't mend things that still cut, he said. I replace them. The room cooled perceptibly. On the screen, the image was perfect. Two professionals, a glossy, citrus-bright set, and polished smiles. But in the air, an invisible string was being pulled tighter with every answer. Jennifer took a slow, steady singer's breath. Last one before the break, she promised. You've used phrases like owning your narrative and curating inputs. For anyone watching who feels small today, what's one concrete practice you swear by? He smiled, like a teacher who had just been given a very easy question. Stop feeling small, he said. Stand up properly. Edit your circle. Decline anything that dims you. If that offends people, they were just furniture. A surprised "oh" ran through the audience, half impressed, half uneasy. Jennifer's smile softened, but her eyes were searching now. That's certainly decisive, she managed with a small, strained laugh. All right, y'all, we're going to a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about service, legacy, and what joy looks like for Prince Harry these days. The applause lights blinked. The band lifted the room with bright brass, but the director held the wide shot for an extra beat, as if to prove to everyone that nothing was wrong. But even in the bright daylight of the studio, you could feel it. The temperature had dropped. The pleasantries had teeth. Somewhere between intentional mornings and furniture, the conversation had become a quiet test of patience. Hers, in maintaining her altitude, and his, in refusing to meet her there. Backstage, a production assistant rolled in a product table no one would remember. The PA whispered countdowns into their earpieces. Jennifer adjusted her cuff and smiled into the middle distance, the way professionals do when they have decided to salvage a moment with grace. Across from her, Harry sat like a man who was utterly convinced that grace was something other people owed to him. They would come back from the commercial break with the same smiles. The questions would still be soft around the edges. but everyone in the building could feel it now. The strong, undeniable tug of a current moving fast under, dragging this bright little boat toward sharper, more dangerous waters. The lights came back up. The band faded out, and the cameras rolled again. Jennifer Hudson's smile returned, soft and practiced, but the air carried an invisible static. She clasped her cards lightly, leaned forward just enough, and delivered her next line with a kind of velvet ease. "So, Prince Harry, let's talk about service," she began. "Your grandmother, Queen Elizabeth, often spoke about duty as the highest calling. What does service mean to you now in this new chapter of your life?" Harry's lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Service," he echoed. "People love to dress that word in ceremonial robes. For me, service is choosing not to waste time. If I invest in something, it's because it deserves me." A murmur rippled through the audience, a mix of half admiration and half unease. Jennifer, ever gracious, nodded slowly. "That's an interesting way to put it. So, what kind of service projects feel worth your time these days?" Harry leaned back, clasping his hands behind his head as if the chair were a royal throne. "Ones that move the needle, not ribbon cuttings, not photo ops. Systems. Big levers. If people don't understand the scale, that's their limitation, not mine." Jennifer blinked, keeping her smile steady. "Of course, sometimes the small stories matter too. Don't you think? A single veteran helped, a single child given hope." He cut her off gently but firmly. "Hope is sentimental. Transformation is measurable. I prefer metrics to feelings." The audience shifted again, some of them frowning openly. Jennifer adjusted her posture, letting his words pass without resistance. "All right," she said warmly. "Let's shift gears a bit. People love to see your human side. You've mentioned driving your son to school. What's one parenting moment that has stuck with you lately?" Harry chuckled, but there was no warmth in it. "Parenting moments are private currency. I don't spend them here." Jennifer's jaw tensed slightly, but her voice stayed calm. "Fair enough. But even a small anecdote, maybe something that made you laugh." Harry tilted his head. "I'll give you this. I laughed yesterday at how obsessed everyone seems with the trivial details of my life. That's enough of an anecdote, isn't it?" A few uneasy chuckles filtered through the room. Jennifer's smile flickered but quickly returned. "Well, the public feels connected to you. That's why they're curious. It's really admiration." Harry raised a brow. "Admiration is just another word for projection. They don't know me. They know an image. If they admire, it's because I mirror something they wish they had." The tension in the studio tightened further. Jennifer glanced at her note cards, then carefully set them aside. She decided to trust her instincts. "You've often spoken about mental health. That's something very personal to many of us. What advice would you give someone out there who feels like they're struggling right now?" Harry's tone softened, but the arrogance lingered beneath the surface. "Stop waiting for advice. Advice is dependency dressed up as wisdom. Take action. Get up. Change your inputs. No one's coming to rescue you." A sharp gasp rippled through the front row. Jennifer's hand twitched slightly, but she smoothed it into her lap. "That's very direct," she said gently. "But sometimes people need encouragement, not just tough love." Harry shrugged. "Encouragement is a crutch. People like you hand it out to keep audiences clapping. I prefer truth." The applause light blinked, but only half the audience obeyed. The other half sat stiffly, unsure whether they were supposed to clap at all. Jennifer drew a deep breath. "Prince Harry," she said, her voice carrying a note of steel beneath the silk. "I believe truth and kindness can live in the same sentence. Don't you?" Harry leaned forward at last, his eyes fixed on hers. "Kindness is optional. Clarity is not. That's why I left where I left. Too many smiles, not enough honesty." The studio fell silent. Jennifer held his gaze, her smile still there, but stretched thinner now. "Well," she said softly, "we do appreciate honesty on this show, even when it stings." The audience gave a tentative round of applause. The director signaled for a break, but Jennifer waved him off with a quick smile, determined to keep going. "One more before we pause," she said. "What brings you joy these days?" "Just pure, simple joy." Harry's answer came like a hammer wrapped in velvet. "Not having to answer questions like these." The audience gasped audibly. Jennifer froze, her smile faltering for the first time. For a single heartbeat, she didn't move. Then, with a professionalism honed by years of stage lights and public scrutiny, she lifted her chin and gave a soft, almost imperceptible laugh. Well then, she said. We'll be right back after this break. The cameras cut to a wide shot. The music swelled, but the tension didn't fade. It sat there, thick as smoke, promising that what came next would not be a return to sunshine, but a descent into something far darker. When the cameras came back, Jennifer's smile returned, polished and luminous, but her eyes carried the faintest edge of steel. The audience leaned forward, sensing the powerful undercurrent. Prince Harry sat opposite her, his posture relaxed, but with an unmistakable air of smug superiority, as though every question were a mere nuisance rather than an opportunity. Welcome back, Jennifer said smoothly. We're here with Prince Harry, talking about life, service, and perspective. She glanced at him with a practiced warmth, then leaned in slightly. So, Harry, let's talk about your book. It became a global bestseller almost overnight. What do you think resonated most with readers? Harry smirked, tugging at his cuff. Resonated? I suppose people finally got to hear something other than palace-approved fairy tales. I gave them truth, not bedtime stories, and people are tired of bedtime stories. The audience chuckled nervously. Jennifer kept her smile intact. It was certainly candid, but some critics felt it painted your family in a harsh light. Do you think there's any part of the story you might have told differently? Harry's eyes narrowed slightly. Critics usually come from people who haven't lived a day of my life. It's easy to call something harsh when you're sitting comfortably in your armchair with no cameras, no headlines, no knives at your back. The silence stretched before Jennifer gently nodded. Fair, but do you think? He interrupted. Do I think? Of course I think. That's why I'm here. If I wanted to parrot polite nonsense, I would have stayed where I was. The audience shifted uncomfortably. Jennifer's voice softened, almost maternal. I hear you. But sometimes the audience just wants to connect with the man behind the headlines, the father, the husband. Can you share a little joy? Something light for them. Harry tilted his head, a trace of disdain in his smile. Joy isn't for public consumption. You can't package it into daytime segments. If they want entertainment, they can look elsewhere. I'm not here to perform. Jennifer exhaled slowly through her nose. She kept her tone steady. All right then, let's talk legacy. Your mother, Princess Diana, left a powerful mark on the world. How do you hope to carry her legacy forward? Harry's posture stiffened. By not letting her story be reduced to anecdotes on a talk show couch. The audience gasped. Jennifer's smile faltered for half a second before she recovered. I mean no disrespect, Harry. Your mother was a beloved figure. People feel a connection to her, and through you, they want to know her legacy lives on. Harry leaned forward, his voice low but sharp. Her legacy lives on in my choices, not in audience applause. For the first time, Jennifer's eyes flickered with something more than patience, something harder. But she smoothed it over with a small laugh. All right, let's turn to the future. You and Meghan have taken bold steps away from royal duties. Some admire it, some don't understand it. How do you respond to those who say you walked away from responsibility? Harry's tone was clipped. Responsibility isn't wearing a medal and waving from a balcony. Responsibility is protecting your family. I don't need approval from strangers to validate that. Jennifer nodded, though her grip tightened slightly on her cards. Understood. But you've also stepped into media deals, documentaries, and public platforms. Some might say that's not stepping away, but stepping into a different spotlight. Harry smirked again. Yes, and some might say the sky is green. People talk because they can't imagine making bold moves themselves. It's easier to critique than to act. The tension in the room thickened. Jennifer pressed on, her smile now clearly strained at the edges. So, Prince Harry, what would you say to those who feel you've traded one form of privilege for another? Harry's response came instantly. I'd say it's none of their business. If they want to discuss privilege, they can start with their own lives before lecturing me about mine. The audience reacted audibly this time, a ripple of surprise and discomfort. Jennifer took a steadying breath, her eyes locking onto his. Well, she said soft, people look to you as an example. That's why they ask. Harry leaned back again, folding his arms. Examples are for textbooks. I'm not a case study. I'm a reality they don't want to face. Jennifer's smile froze, then cracked just enough for the cameras to miss, but for the audience to catch. She shifted in her chair, tapping her cards against her knee. Prince Harry, she said, her voice a little firmer now. I think what people want is honesty, yes, but also humility. Would you agree? Humility has a place in leadership. Harry's gaze locked onto hers. Humility is overrated. It's usually demanded by people who don't have achievements of their own. I prefer authenticity over false modesty. The audience gasped again, louder this time. Jennifer's chest rose and fell once in a long, quiet inhale. She smiled, but it no longer reached her eyes. All right, she said finally. We're going to take one more short break. The cameras cut wide as the band played them out, but the audience's faces told the real story. Disbelief, unease, even anger. Something was building, unstoppable now, like a storm that had been gathering over calm seas. And at the center of it sat Jennifer Hudson, still poised but running out of patience, and Prince Harry, smugly convinced he had won whatever battle he thought he was fighting. What came after the break would not be polite. The cameras returned from the break. The audience clapped dutifully, but the energy was different now. Less excitement, more dread. Everyone knew they were watching something that could implode at any second. Jennifer Hudson straightened her notes, exhaled, and flashed a smile at the cameras. Welcome back. We're here with Prince Harry, she said warmly, though her voice carried a quiet tension. Harry sat with his legs crossed, his posture casual, but his expression was smug, as if the applause were meant solely for him. Jennifer leaned forward, still composed. Harry, you've spoken about rewriting your story, owning your narrative. But some people feel your narrative has been at the expense of others. Your family, your country, even your late grandmother. What do you say to that? Harry chuckled under his breath. I say people love fairy tales until the truth ruins the ending. My story isn't about their comfort. It's about my survival. If that offends them, so be it. A murmur of disapproval rippled through the audience. Jennifer pressed her lips together, then nodded slowly. I see. But what about accountability? Do you believe you owe your family or the public any reflection, any humility? Harry tilted his head. Accountability is a tool used by the powerless to restrain the powerful. I've carried burdens none of you could imagine. I don't owe anyone an apology for refusing to stay silent. The audience gasped audibly. Jennifer's face didn't flinch, but her voice dropped lower and firmer now. With all due respect, Harry, I think humility isn't restraint. It's respect. Respect for people who look up to you, and for those who came before you. Harry smirked. Respect has to be earned. And frankly, most people haven't earned mine. The words landed like stones. A collective gasp swept through the studio. Jennifer's smile vanished. For the first time all morning, her composure cracked. She leaned forward, her eyes as sharp as glass. You know what, Harry? She said, her voice no longer velvet, but still. Enough. You've sat here acting like every question is beneath you. Like every person in this room owes you reverence. But let me remind you, you're not in a palace anymore. This isn't Buckingham. This is real life. The audience erupted in cheers and applause. Harry's smirk faltered, replaced with a flash of anger. Jennifer pressed on, her voice rising. You talk about service, but all I hear is arrogance. You talk about survival, but all I see is entitlement. You've been given platforms most people would dream of. And instead of gratitude, you serve up lectures and disdain. Harry's jaw clenched. You invited me here, Jennifer. If you didn't want honesty, you shouldn't have asked. Jennifer shot back instantly. Honesty isn't the same as condescension. You've insulted the viewers, dismissed the struggles of ordinary people, and acted like you're still a prince in command. But here's the truth. You're not. You walked away, and the world kept turning without you. The crowd roared. Harry's face reddened. He started to respond, but Jennifer's voice cut through, unyielding. And let's be even clearer, she said, her tone deadly calm now. You are not your mother. Princess Diana earned love through compassion, humility, and courage. You've traded hers for self-pity and arrogance. You are not living up to her legacy. You're tarnishing it. The studio went silent, stunned. Harry's eyes glistened, his composure cracking for the first time. He stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. I don't have to sit here and listen to this, he snapped, his voice trembling with fury. Jennifer sat tall, unflinching. Then don't. This interview is over. Security stepped discreetly forward as Harry ripped off his microphone. The cameras caught every movement. His flushed face, his clenched fists, the audience's shocked stares. He stormed toward the exit, muttering under his breath. At the door, He turned back for a split second, his eyes burning with wounded pride, then disappeared off-set. The audience erupted, some clapping, some gasping, others too stunned to move. Jennifer sat perfectly still, her chest rising with a deep breath. Then she turned to the camera. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, her voice calm but resolute. "Sometimes respect has to be demanded, and today was one of those times. We'll be right back." The band struck a note, the lights dimmed, and the screen faded to black. What began as a warm welcome had ended in a televised implosion. Prince Harry leaving in disgrace, Jennifer Hudson standing tall, and daytime TV history being written in real time.